Is Ben Johnson the leader in the clubhouse to be the Chicago Bears head coach in 2025? Some reports are starting to circulate. We're getting closer to that decision. We're going to talk about it all here on CHGO Bears After Dark, starting right now. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark, presented by our guys over at ComEd. ComEd always help keeping the lights on for us here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Make sure you hit up ComEd for all your energy needs at comed.com/biz. We're back here once again on Monday night. Appreciate everyone joining us. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, once again, is our guy, the hardest working man in tailgating business, Joey Christopolous, who shows up at 5 a.m. to help set up tents and heaters and everything else to make our tailgating experience as fun as it is. Only one more to go, Joey. Only one more to go on our tailgating season, because this Bears season is starting to come to an end. Certainly going to miss the fun times we've had at the corner of Wabash and Cermak, but it sounds like on Thursday it'll be a nice warm send-off for a long, miserable Bears season.
What's up, Braggs? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, coming to you live from Yinzer Nation here in Pittsburgh. holding it down with the in-laws, man. Excited to be here with you. I got to tell you, man, the people at Circus Sports that came out to the tailgate, they made the tailgate warm. That's for sure. It was great to see them. It was a great turnout. It's been a great season with those tailgates. So why not bring it home strong this Thursday, man? Good to be with you for the next hour.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be getting into a lot of different reports that are out there. We're going to get, the clarity on those reports, and talk about some different things, and obviously send everyone into the holiday season. My family's got a big Christmas Eve party coming up tomorrow that we do every single year. So certainly looking forward to spending some time with the family over the next couple days. But first, let's get into it, because I was actually texting with Courtney Cronin a little bit ago, and she had a report out there, at least what fans started to interpret as, something that was more than just kind of a one-off mention. And I'll read it to you here. And she wanted to be clear with me that the specific quote was the correct one that you guys can all understand as fans. And here it is from their article on ESPN, where they do a rundown of the entire league. They asked, how did Ben Johnson's up-close audition land with the Bears? Sources confirmed to ESPN that the Lions offensive coordinator is a name that the Bears expect to interview for their head coaching vacancy. Detroit put up 400 plus yards of offense for a third time in 4 games and jumped out to an early 20-0 lead. Conversely, Johnson, who praised quarterback Caleb Williams for how the ball whistles when he throws it, got a good look at a strong performance from the rookie. Once again, that is from Courtney Cronin of ESPN, who does great work in her own right. And that certainly set Bears Twitter off a little bit, because, I think people will combine that report with the fact that, there has been earlier reports where Ben Johnson has said, hey, it sounds like he's only going to take interviews that he is seriously considering taking, and not necessarily like where some head coaching candidates would take an interview with any of the 32 teams in the NFL. Obviously, there's one of 32 of those jobs, so you have to be grateful for any opportunity that comes your way. But some coaches can kind of pick and choose their spots, just as some GMs can pick and choose their spots, like Ian Cunningham has over the last couple of years, essentially passing on some GM opportunities that could have potentially come his way. So Joey, for you, when you hear that after what you saw from Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions, like where's your headspace at the potential that this might become a reality here within a few weeks?
Well, we've heard the word expect from Courtney Cronin. I agree. She does great work. We've heard the word expect also from Tom Pelissero. As someone who the last couple of weeks has definitely been banging the drum for Mike Vrabel, all of a sudden after that performance, Braggs, I'm checking under the Christmas tree once. I'm checking under it twice. I'm checking under it 3 times. And hopefully in February, Ben Johnson is one of the presents underneath the Christmas tree. I'm starting to turn the corner a little bit. And look, I think my past Bearsness, if you will, was always a little bit gun shy and a little bit hesitant to say, are we just going to go out and get the new offensive coordinator, the new flavor of the month, the Matt Nagy du jour of this particular coaching cycle? But as the Detroit Lions approach 500 team points this year, breaking a franchise record that they almost beat last year. Can I interest you in that, Bears fans? And just some of the play design, and I know we'll get into the stumble bum, right? But, I mean, it was on full display there against our Chicago Bears defense. Look, I'm not going to say that our Chicago Bears defense is anything. It's a shell of its former self. But all of a sudden now, all signs continue to point to Ben Johnson. And if he has interest in Caleb Williams, I think the Chicago Bears need to listen, right? Now, a lot can happen. I'm not, I don't want to speculate, right, where I'm saying, does the Cincinnati Bengals job become wide open? Does that change things? But look around the NFL. Is there any other situation that has the quarterback in place like Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears where Ben Johnson can come in and immediately work with a quarterback that he likes a whole lot? So, I mean, Braggs, man, where are you on this one? Because I'm getting real intrigued, and this starts to seem like, the glove is starting to fit, and it's starting to make almost too much sense for the Chicago Bears to throw the full court press at Ben Johnson.
Yeah, it does. You can understand why it makes a lot of sense. And the only worry you have, just like when they drafted Caleb Williams, which made a lot of sense 12 months ago at this time, even though there was some trepidation. Are we making the right decision? What route do we take? What do we do? But it's just like this obvious decision is staring you right in the face. And sometimes the simplest explanations can tend to be the right ones. But for Bears fans, we're a little gun shy of what we think is the obvious decision, because it always comes back to burn us. And so, the only question is will it work out? Yeah, it's the obvious decision. He's been the best play caller for 3 years. He's been the coach of he's been coaching an offense that's been in the top 5 the last 3 years. The Lions are a well-oiled machine, as DJ Moore called them earlier today on 670 The Score. And I agree with Scott Wajda here in the chat saying, stop comparing Nagy with Ben Johnson, not even in the same galaxy. I mean, when you look at when the Bears brought in Matt Nagy to be their head coach, he was the hot head coaching candidate. And that's where the comparisons end with him and Ben Johnson, because Matt Nagy was a play caller for 3 games. This guy's been on a team where Andy Reid is the offensive head coach. Ben Johnson has been a play caller for 3 years on a team where Dan Campbell is your head coach, who doesn't really have much of a say in the offensive play calls and what they're going to do, other than go for it on every single 4th down that ever is as they ever come across. And, maybe some of that aggressiveness has spilled over into Ben Johnson as well. That whole team embodies aggressiveness. So I love the idea of it. And the more I do some research into him, and I've been putting together a thread over the last few weeks of different snippets I've seen from post-game pressers, some mic'd up moments on the sidelines, him talking about Caleb Williams, as Courtney Cronin mentioned, where he says the ball whistles out of his hand. So obviously he's impressed by him. I thought it was funny during the broadcast yesterday, because I was at the game. So to be able to come back and watch it and seeing how they would pan back and forth as Caleb Williams is on offense. They're not panning to Thomas Brown. They're panning to Ben Johnson on the other side to see how he's reacting to what Caleb Williams is doing. So now you're really just starting to envision this entire scenario. And, Caleb Williams, he ends the day with, he had some great numbers yesterday. What were they? These were some of our yesterday stuff we had up, but, 334 yards passing, 34 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and only sacked twice, and Caleb's had some games where he's taken a lot of sacks, and, they cleaned it up against Detroit a little bit here at the very least. And in 2 games, I think he has 681 total yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's 2 games against one of the best teams in football. And he did it, with a coaching staff that's been shown the door, right? The first time around, he faced Ben Johnson and the Lions with Shane Waldron having just been fired a couple weeks ago. And now this time around, he's facing him with Matt Eberflus having been just fired a few weeks ago. And so through all the storm, Caleb Williams has produced some pretty good numbers by anybody's standard in 2 losing efforts against the Lions. So just imagine what they could do if they are together. Now, to answer this long-winded answer that you asked me of like, well, what do I think about it overall? The only other question I'd have is, can he develop Caleb Williams? We know he can call plays. We know they've been a top 5 offense. And Jared Goff is a veteran quarterback who plays on time, and they have one of the better offensive lines in the league. They are a systematic football team that plays with precision and execution, whereas the Bears don't have any of that. So you have Ben Johnson come in here, and he's going to clean up all that. But then you also have to ask yourself, can he develop Caleb Williams into becoming a veteran quarterback who consistently plays on time and becomes, this mature quarterback that, can reach his fullest potential? That's I think a bigger question than anything else that we know he can do from a playbook standpoint.
100%. And that is by far the biggest question with this possible marriage, because there's definitely some flirting going on, right? I think that there's some very carefully crafted reporting about, interest and talking a little bit about Caleb Williams' game and what would that mean and what would that possibly look like. And honestly, Braggs, I rail against now. I interact with people on socials just like everybody else. And what I've heard a bit of a common refrain, if you want to be critical of Caleb Williams, is some of this stuff is coming in garbage time, or these are garbage yards, or he's putting up these stats when the team is down. And I'm not going to dismiss the fact that we've been awful in the first quarter. We've been awful in the first half of games. But what Caleb Williams continues to do, though, he continues to put amazing throws on tape. And when we walk out of this rookie season with Caleb Williams, sometimes you have more questions than answers with Bears quarterbacks in this town. And I don't care what point of the game it is. He's a rookie quarterback. Seeing some of these throws, that throw to Keenan Allen, I get it. It cut the lead to 17 at the time. But the most important thing is that those things exist and they're on tape and you can build off of that. And I think Ben Johnson is acknowledging that. And I think that's a big step of what could possibly be this marriage of Ben Johnson coming into Chicago. The other question that I have, Braggs, is just kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit, is you do hear a lot of Ben Johnson willing to listen to the Chicago Bears. I am curious though, is there more baked into the pie of, I bet you Ben Johnson would love to work with Caleb Williams, but my question is, Braggs, what do you think those other elements are? Is it ownership? Is it general manager? What are those other factors that Ben Johnson's going to want to hear that's going to make him confident and excited, that isn't necessarily a dollar sign, that's going to want him, make him the next head coach of the Chicago Bears? I think that's another piece of that too as well. And I'm curious to hear what your thoughts possibly are on that too as well.
Well, right, because he wants to work with Caleb Williams. Most coaches would. You would hope most offensive coaches would, because of the extreme potential and talent that he possesses. But does Ben Johnson want to work with the Chicago Bears? Those are 2 separate things in certain ways, at least in the way that you're asking me and framing this question. And as I talked about last night on our After Dark post-game show with Lance Briggs, you know, that this league is connected in so many different ways. Players are connected to coaches. Players and coaches are connected to agents, and people talk and things come out. And as I said on the After Dark postgame show last night, David Kaplan put out a report a few weeks ago that the Bears flew Dan Quinn out in coach. And guess what? Coaches talk to their agents. Guess who's the agent of Dan Quinn? Guess who else he represents? Ben Johnson. So when you ask, you know, does he want to work with the Bears? Well, does Ben Johnson, you know, hear these things from his agent? Like, hey, well, the Bears, you know, when I worked with them doing this in the past, you know, that these are the things that the Bears got to clean up on their end. You know, they once famously, you know, reportedly, you know, when they wanted to interview Bruce Arians and Mark Trestman, tried to have them both do a fake introduction press conference. And Bruce Arians had just come off winning head coach of the year. Bruce Arians is looking at him like, are you guys crazy? Like, you either want me as your coach or you don't. I just won coach of the year. You want me to give you a fake rah-rah speech? I'm not doing that. Like, okay, then we'll hire Mark Trestman. Okay, we'll see you later. And look how Bruce Arians ended up. And then look how Mark Trestman era ended up here in Chicago. So I think there's a lot of questions to be had when it comes to the Bears, you know, auditioning properly for Ben Johnson than it is for Ben Johnson to audition for the Bears in some ways, for sure. The Bears don't have any equity built up to say that they've got everything figured out. And certainly Ben Johnson isn't a proven commodity, but you know, I just think the Bears have a lot of things they got to clean up on their own end as well. You know, we see a lot of people in the chat that are questioning whether or not, you know, Ben Johnson would come here. Gucci Finesse saying, I'll bet Ben Johnson doesn't come here. Stuart Anthony saying Ben Johnson is a no thanks for me. EV Warrior says Ben Johnson is not going to make much of a difference. How many games before we hear fire Ben Johnson? I say 5. Well, that would be coming from the meatball who freaks out. It typically takes me about 5 to 8. This year, I you know what? I made it all the way until like week 8, week 9 before I completely blew my top. But I had said I wasn't going to do it all year. And then of course I went against that word. Flex Diggs, you know, getting into it here in the chat saying BJ is overrated in my view. He has talent, and given the free range to do trick stuff, half those plays would blow up in our face. I mean, you're 100% right. And we'll get to this after the break, but you know, his little stumble Rooski yesterday, you need good blocking to execute a play like that. And in Chicago, that kind of play would get blown up very quickly. But you know, we'll see. And then I'm sure the Bears are going to address offensive line in the offseason, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to be as good of an offensive line as the Detroit Lions have had for a few years here. So we're going to get into some different reports that add on to this conversation here after the break in regards to Ben Johnson and circle the wagons with some of the work being done here at CHGO to try to figure out who the next head coach here in Chicago will be. But first, got to give a quick shout out to our guys over at CHSN, the Chicago Sports Network, the new home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox games. We are sponsored by the fine people over there, and CHSN will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, and will feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're also Chicago-based, Chicago-built, and Chicago to the core, and they're bringing it to every corner of Chicago across our 77 neighborhoods and beyond. At CHSN, Chicago comes first. Visit CHSN.com for more info on how to watch the Bulls, Blackhawks, and White Sox games all season long. Hit up, like I said, at CHSN.com. Also got to give a shout out to our guys over at Game Time. Had to hit up the Game Time app yesterday as I made my way into Soldier Field to watch the Chicago Bears get their teeth kicked in, but Caleb Williams had a pretty solid day, so it was worth the trip, at least from my perspective. Probably the last time I'll see Soldier Field for another year, so took it in while I could. So shout out to Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I literally bought tickets off Game Time to go to the AC/DC concert coming up here in May at Soldier Field. And they just have so many different interesting ways of you to look at tickets. You can find the cheapest seat, the hottest deal, the best price. And it's all kind of sectioned out. Like when you open up the map for the stadium view and it shows you all around the stadium, like where these seats are. And when you click on the ticket, it gives you the vantage point. And then it shows you the money up front, what you would pay instead of like going through like 5 different windows and then finding out it's twice as much as what you thought initially. And a lot of those secondary market tickets, they like to play that little trick on you. Game Time does not. Game Time Picks curation, it makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater. The all-in pricing, as I said, shows you all those prices up front, the panoramic view, and then, of course, their lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit to you 110% of the difference. And then, of course, their Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
Game time.
There it is. There it is. I like it. Moving along here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Make sure you're hitting the like button for us. We appreciate you hanging out. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you all. It's going to be a fun couple days spoiling our loved ones with gifts and, getting into the Christmas year. We even got a few NFL games on Christmas Day as well, as the NFL just continues to engulf every day of the calendar. And that is just fine by me. But as I said, let's get into a little more of the reports of this Ben Johnson stuff, because I do find it intriguing. And we had another really interesting report come across Sunday morning while we were at the tailgate, enjoying our time with the fans. Tom Pelissero was on NFL Network, and he put out a really interesting report with some tidbits in there where he's kind of added on saying, my understanding is Ben Johnson is intrigued by the Bears job, and he's going to be willing to listen. There's a lot to like in Chicago with Caleb Williams, tons of cap space, extra draft resources. Right now, the Bears sit in 9th, could get as high as 7th. And honestly, Joe, if they won out, they could only fall to 10th in their draft spot for their first round pick. But then Tom Pelissero, when I talk about like interesting tidbits in here, he also goes on to say, he says it's also a major market and they're expected to break ground on a new stadium next year. Team president Kevin Warren has a lot of connections around the league from his several decades in pro and college football. That's allowed him to jumpstart on the search process, gathering background as part of what is expected to be a thorough search led by Warren and GM Ryan Poles. Interviews with current NFL assistants like Ben Johnson cannot begin until after the regular season. What the heck? Joey, he just he did this whole Ben Johnson report and then just slides in, and the Bears are expected to break ground on a new stadium next year. Like,
where are the shovels? Does he know where the shovels are exactly?
I like how he just slid that in there, and maybe he's just hopefully, but as somebody that really understands the power of his words as an insider, and he's making reporting, it's a lot of times reports like that are intentional. Other times, they're intentional because of who's giving you certain information and they want that out there. So you have to be careful across the board with any report. And obviously we're having some fun with some different speculation and reporting here tonight. But at the same time, if you're monitoring, the different things going on in Arlington Heights where they got the tax approvals from, the town and everything else, like it does feel like it is getting closer. And I made the prediction a few weeks ago that I actually did believe as somebody that hates talking about the new stadium, because I just think it's an endless pit of conversation. I do believe that they will break ground in Arlington Heights this offseason. I think they will officially announce it at some point here, maybe even before the draft. I truly believe that. And that's just strictly from a gut instinct standpoint and monitoring the tea leaves of what's going on with the tax approvals in Arlington Heights and seeing how they're going absolutely nowhere with Chicago and playing this, staring contest where they try to leverage the city of Chicago and Arlington Heights against each other. It just feels like they've kind of reached the end of their rope there, and they're not going to just keep pouring money into this asset and this, this property they own in Arlington Heights and not do anything with it. I just think the rubber has met the road, and we will see the Chicago Bears in Arlington Heights sooner rather than later.
And what it also does, Braggs, for me is, and this is just me trying to read through it, right, is I think it adds, by reporting that, I think it adds an extra layer and provides an illustrated context into how pivotal this offseason is for the Chicago Bears and Kevin Warren. And honestly, I've been doing a lot of thinking on this, and I'm an eternal optimist, right? So forgive me if I'm trying to spin this in however way I am, but this is where I'm trying to do it. Is the best thing that's happened about this entire season. And look, we can talk about, and these are all factual. We can talk about Caleb Williams and his downfield throwing. We can talk about Caleb Williams holding on the ball too long, sacks, all that good stuff.
Right.
But what Caleb Williams has done for this franchise, it is shining a light on every aspect of this franchise right now. And we're seeing it real time. Offense isn't working. They're firing the offensive coordinator. Head coach making mistakes. They're firing a head coach for the first time ever mid-season. And these conversations about Ben Johnson, about Kevin Warren in a new stadium, this seems like that real pivot point, right? The fork in the road for the Chicago Bears. They got to get this right. And this head coaching hire has to be a home run. And look, I think both me and you have talked plenty about Mike Vrabel and how that would be a great, safe choice. But as this continues and Caleb Williams puts good tape against Detroit Lions and the Detroit Lions keep scoring points, we'll see how far they go in the playoffs. And honestly, that offense is going to have to carry them deep in the playoffs. So that resume for Ben Johnson, if they go far, that's just going to get richer and deeper. I think it just really kind of accentuates how pivotal it is and where the Chicago Bears might be turning towards Ben Johnson. So if Ben Johnson's also seeing this too as well, and as you mentioned, that's such a great point about the agent. Chicago Bears got to come correct, right? And this is laying the groundwork right now of what Ben Johnson, coming correct to Ben Johnson's going to look like, or even to a Mike Vrabel. And I think these are all little breadcrumbs and pieces. And the central focus of all this is Caleb Williams. Is he going to be a 10-time Pro Bowler and win multiple Super Bowls? I don't know, but I think he has the talent that's worth the consideration. And for the first time ever, the Chicago Bears have that. And it's shining a light across the entire organization, where I think also fans are talking about ownership more than they ever have before. And I think this is where it's all leading towards right now. So, I mean, when we talk about a new stadium and everything, this all kind of goes hand in hand with maybe new head coach with Caleb Williams, new stadium, new era, Kevin Warren's era. Yep. What this does for Ryan Poles, I'm not sure, Braggs, but I think that's all where it's kind of being built towards leading right now as we wrap up the season.
Yeah, and then the big question, too, when you talk about the Kevin Warren era is if, Ben Johnson were to come here, as, Tom Pelissero says, I'm willing to listen and I'm intrigued and I want to, I'd love to work with a guy like Caleb Williams. Well, does he want to work with Ryan Poles, too? Or is there a potential of a pairing from Detroit where you bring in, their assistant GM, Ray Agnew, and there's a lot of people that think there's, a lot of logic to a move like that. And so I can see that. It's just hard for me to predict which way Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles are going to go when the season ends. I mean, the longer this losing streak goes, the harder it is to sell the idea that Ryan Poles will be the one to pick to clean up this mess, because until the Packers game, like, this wasn't a mess. I mean, they hadn't figured it out, but like last year they finished on a strong note. Then they had a really good offseason.
They were the mediocre Bears. They were the mediocre Bears heading into the Packers game, right?
Then they started 4-2. Things started to falter. But all those benchmark moments it wasn't like they had gone backwards and become a mess. Well, now you're on a 9-game losing streak. 9. And you could finish the season on an 11-game losing streak. And so, you know, when they fired Matt Eberflus and Kevin Warren said that, you know, Ryan Poles would be the point person in this head coaching search, you know, I don't know if he, you know, put into his calculation that they could lose out the rest of their games. And so at some point, does that result factor into Kevin Warren having to make another really hard decision here in the offseason as soon as Black Monday hits? And I think there's a real possibility of that. And if Ben Johnson says that that's his requirement and Kevin Warren deems that Ben Johnson is the best candidate for the job, does Kevin Warren, you know, become really aggressive in that scenario?
Right. And look, thought experiment just really quickly. And let's just do it based on the reporting that we've had here today. Braggs, what are the reasons that Ben Johnson would not want to come to the Chicago Bears? Because due to the reporting, it would not be Caleb Williams. It would not be Ben Johnson doesn't want to coach Caleb Williams or doesn't think that he can develop him or doesn't think he can take him to the next level. So then the next step question is, why would Ben Johnson not want to come to the Chicago Bears?
Right. I see it, you know, I see it and I understand. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And I'm very grateful that this is a decision that'll come faster than last year's quarterback decision and how long it took to figure out when they're going to trade Justin Fields. And then you're waiting for the draft. Like that was pulling teeth getting through that process. This process is going to go a little faster and it's going to be interesting to see it all play out. So you're reading all the tea leaves to all these little reports and trusted insiders. We had Jeremy Fowler on last week. And so there has been some conflicting reporting where you get one side of the aisle that says, you know, they're going to lean on looking for a coach with veteran experience.
Albert Breer, Mike Vrabel, Mike Vrabel, right? Yeah,
exactly. And Jeremy Fowler said the same thing. And then you've got the other side of the equation of people saying that they're going to look at a coach to pair with Caleb Williams. That's an offensive minded head coach. So, you know, it's all speculation at the end of the day. And we're going to continue to look at these things, and I'll probably be the one to over, you know, analyze it because this is the stuff that I really follow and obsess over, and ultimately none of it really matters until the decision's made. But this is why we have fun talking about it every single day, and why Bears fans, you know, head to social media and do different things to just talk about this team that we love. Is we're obsessive about it, and we're going to follow all the little tea leaves along the way. And so when we come back here after this break, I'm going to tell you how you can do your homework and find out how you can find
the
best formula of figuring out who the next head coach is. And that comes up right after the break. But first, gotta once again give a shout out to our guys over at Sunnyside. Make sure you're using the code HICHGO for 50% off. Our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your winter, keeping you warm. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from, with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Stop in the store nearest you throughout Illinois for expert guidance from their staff, or select from quality lines like Cresco or Floricol. They have a whole bunch of different ones, you know, Island Vibes, Destination Relaxation, Puff Paradise. And from now, you got only a few more days until December 31st. Sunnyside Scratch and Stash is back again for the holiday season, but once again, only for a few more days. So receive a scratch off card every time you shop, now through December 31st, or while supplies last. Every card is a winner. You could win big, like 50% off or $100 off your next purchase. So hurry in to see what you win, and visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter the promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 and older or Illinois medical card holders. And also, of course, got to give a shout out to our presenting sponsors here on CHGO Bears After Dark, and that is our friends over at ComEd. And ComEd is a great friend to the program here. And ComEd can help guide businesses saving money by becoming more energy efficient. And if you didn't know that, Joey, well, I'm telling you now, because the energy efficiency program can help find up to 35% in energy savings. So if you're asking what should businesses have to do, well, they have to sign up for a free facility assessment at comed.com/biz. And if you're asking why aren't more businesses doing that, well, maybe they forgot the website, and that's comed.com/biz. That's right. I said comed.com/biz.
Did you say comed.com/biz?
That's exactly what I said. comed.com/biz. That should do it. Terms and conditions apply. Offers are subject to change. Actual savings will vary by customers' energy usage and rate. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is funded in compliance with state law. All right. I had teased it before the break, how you can become smarter in your research of how to find the next head coach of the Chicago Bears in 2025. That's right. The Hogey Bible has been officially revealed by one Adam Hogue earlier today here on December the 23rd. He puts on Twitter, how to hire an NFL head coach in 2025. Part 1, the most important factors have been revealed. So this is going to be, I don't know how many part series. Do you know, Joey? I guess I'm supposed to know.
It's a true detective anthology. It's a true detective anthology.
Yeah, we don't know.
Many seasons. Yeah,
Hogue's with his family. I tried to pressure him to come on, but he's a good family man, and so we'll let him, talk about it here on the show on Thursday when the Bears take on the Seahawks for our pregame show. But if you go to allchgo.com/diehard, you can sign up and get this information. And it's, part 1, the most important factors, how to hire an NFL head coach in 2025. And I'm actually very offended that he did not take the name, the Hogey Bible, for the name of this series, because when Bill Belichick said that he had a Bible, a Belichick Bible for pro and college teams in his, interviews that he was ready to give to teams, I said that he needed to call this, because he's been working on this for a while and it's extremely detailed. And I was like, well, you need to call it the Hogey Bible. And of course he doesn't listen to me because he doesn't understand geniusness. And so now here we are. And Jim Cook says that series is going to lead us to Bill O'Brien, and comments like that, Jim, are going to lead you to get blocked from the show. So, Joey, I know you kind of been clued in a little bit of how the process is going to work with the Hogey Bible. And I know I'm going to have to stop calling it that because it's not called that, but I just can't help it. So, but we're both really interested, in finding out more about that. And as I said before, if you go to allchgo.com/diehard, you can get access to exclusive content like that all off season long. And there's going to be a lot of good stuff, from the coaching search to free agency to the draft, where you're going to get some exclusive content written by the one and only Adam Hogue.
Yeah, the important factors of this is I got a little taste of it. So I've gotten a little sneak preview, haven't read the whole thing yet. So I'm not going to spoil anything, but just to tease it for anyone in the chat right now that wants to go to a bar and have a couple pops and wants to start impressing your friends with some of this background back and forth of who we should hire and who we shouldn't hire. This is an absolute must read. If you are interested in not just this perhaps head coach or former head coach or even assistant right now, if you want to know their playoff success and what they've done and what they haven't done at their different positions, if you want to find out in their past stations in life that, yes, incredibly successful coaches had to inherit former coordinators when they first took over the job, that they didn't get everything that they wanted and still found success. If you want to find out whether they were a former player, what kind of background that they have, where they're coming from, what kind of scheme, who influenced them. If you want to learn everything and anything about all these prospective NFL coaching hires, this is going to be an absolute must read. This is like, when Warren Sharp comes out with his Bible or whatever every single year, breaking down teams. This is that kind of breakdown for our prospective head coaches that hopefully are going to become the next and only successful coach for the Chicago Bears for the next 10 years with Caleb Williams. I'm just really, I'm inspired and really impressed by the work that Hogue did. I hope everyone checks it out because I promise you it will make you smarter and it will definitely win you over with your friends while you're trying to have a beer at a bar while we're trying to break down who the next guy is going to be.
Right. And it was interesting because when he initially started, he had this formula that he was starting with and he was telling me about it. He's like, yeah, I'm going to take a few days. I'm going to write this out and then I'll have it published by Monday or something. And then all of a sudden that changed to like, this is going to take a month to make. And I was like, what the hell? Like, what are you slacking? Publish this. You can't tease it on the show and then not publish it. He's like, well, I ran it through this formula that I initially had and it started coming up with some wonky results. And he's like, so I realized that my formula needed to be much more detailed and invasive to get a better understanding of the qualifications that we need to find this. And it's super nerdy and super detailed. And that's what Adam Hogue is all about. And so you're just going to have to go check it out. Once again, part 1 is out and available to you on allchgo.com/diehard. So please sign up and get access to that now.
Yeah, to quote Dr. Dre, Hogue's been in a lab with a pen and a pad. And he's about to unleash it on everybody. I can't recommend it enough. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Perry says, watch the Bears hire Kliff Kingsbury. And this is the thing. I was actually arguing with Adam Hogue in the park in the tailgate lot yesterday morning, where a fan asked him, "Do you think the Bears will consider hiring Kliff Kingsbury?" And he said, "Absolutely not, no way." And that is the general consensus, I think, with most people, that they don't even think he's going to be an option. And I pushed back. I was like, well, he should be considered. And they all kind of looked at me like the hell no. And I'm like, I understand all the negative connotations attached to Kliff Kingsbury that everybody always lays out to me on how he failed in Arizona, how the league catches up with him, second half of seasons, everything falls apart. Look what happened with Kyler Murray. But Jaden Daniels, I understand he had a few turnovers yesterday. He also had 5 touchdowns and took down the Eagles and had some pretty damn good throws in that game. So this fall off that some people were predicting for Jaden Daniels isn't exactly happening the way some fans were trying to make me seem like that was what was going to happen. And, a lot of people try to sell me on this idea that I understand that they have a very I don't even want to call it simplistic offense, but it's like a one-read offense, one-read throws. They design plays to make easy throws for your quarterback. And people use that and say that that's a negative connotation. Well, man, I really wish, I'd love nothing more than for the Bears to have some easy damn completions, because everything seems to be hard in Chicago right now. And, and to bash the first read being your throw, well, if it's the right throw, then that's the one you should make. And so, I also understand the other side of the equation. Yeah, you want a quarterback that can read the whole field. You want a quarterback that isn't limited to an offense that has to cater to the quarterback having to have these very simple throws, because things get harder as you get in the playoffs. The tougher the teams, the tougher the defenses, and now you got to be able to make a play, and it's not always going to come as easily as if you draw it up the way Kliff has been doing for Jaden Daniels. But my whole point, going back to what we said earlier about Ben Johnson, is I don't know if Ben Johnson can develop a quarterback, and whether or not Kliff Kingsbury failed with Kyler Murray, he currently is not failing with Jaden Daniels. He's playing damn good football and is going to win Rookie of the Year, and they're going to the playoffs. This idea that Kliff Kingsbury should be just completely wiped off the board because all these negative connotations attached to him, I still am keeping an open mind to the idea of at the very least considering him.
He's got a background with Caleb Williams. He got Kyler Murray paid. And all I will say is that, look, I think Hogue brought up a really great point too as well, that I've been saying this a lot too, where I'm with you. I think the Chicago Bears are in no position to be crossing people off the list. I think everyone should be considered. I think all options, we need to innovate. We need to think outside the box, whatever that means. And I think Hope brought up a great point where he did say, you need to have a bit of a focused search, though, of an intention of what you want to do or what you're looking for in a head coach. So whether Kliff Kingsbury checks that box or not, we will find out. My only thing, though, with you is I completely agree that he needs to at least be under a consideration because, Kyler Murray, for all of his flaws, he did put him in a position to get paid buku bucks. And what he's done with Jaden Daniels is proof from this very draft class that he's been able to accelerate that dude's development, and he's got them in a position to go to the playoffs. Does that have some of that to do with Dan Quinn, who also we let walk out the door? Sure. But these are scenarios that need to be contemplated just because we get so knee-jerk reaction where we just, we can't do that because X, Y, and Z. I don't think the Bears are really in position to really be sitting there and be like, well, it doesn't fit this and doesn't fit that. We have no fit right now. We have no shape as a franchise right now. We're completely, honestly, we're rudderless, right? We don't have to rebuild the team from scratch. We have some interesting pieces on both sides of the ball, but it has to be someone that's going to put those pieces in a position to succeed. And I'm with you, man. If you draw a great play with a great first read, there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. So I'm not going to say Kliff Kingsbury is high on my list, but I am in no position whatsoever to be like, hard pass. Miss me on that. Where we are right now in our franchise and what's at stake with Caleb Williams and the fact that they do have a bit of a background with him, it should definitely be on the table. With general manager Ryan Poles possibly in flux too as well, that changes the scenario too as well with Kliff Kingsbury. Not saying that he would pick his own GM, but I'm saying that also changes the conversation of that working relationship and the different kind of talent pieces that they need to bring in there to make this offense successful moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's well said, and we got some different thoughts in the chat. A Little Wasted is saying Jaden isn't developing. He ran this stuff in college. He certainly is a more mature quarterback that came out of college, won the Heisman. How many years was he in the league as a college quarterback, right?
He did 5 years, man. Yeah, and he played some big time games, and he went into the draft, and everyone said that he was more NFL ready, more polished than Caleb Williams. That wasn't a knock against Caleb. So Dan Orlovsky, by the way, you can miss me on that tweet also that Jaden Daniels should have gone first. Because that's a weird revisionist history that we all walked into the draft knowing that Caleb wasn't a finished product, but his talent was so tantalizing and his ceiling was so high that it was a no doubter that he was the number one pick. So these weird people that are saying now Jaden should have been this or that, everyone knew that he was going to walk in a little bit more ready-made. He was in the oven a little bit longer than Caleb Williams. So I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but that really that made me mad that we talk about this stuff in the offseason. And then when we get into the season, we kind of forget what we all accepted as truth heading into this whole concept of Caleb.
And Dan Orlovsky had a great breakdown right after the London game, which is the last time Bears fans had any optimism in their lives, where he talked about Caleb Williams making next level quarterback throws that are rarely seen from any kind of quarterback. So, he's got a job to do, and that's just like we do, and react week to week, and circumstances change, and then all of a sudden your takes might change a little bit from how they are, and that's sports conversation at the end of the day. MC Fact also jumping into here the conversation saying hard pass on Kingsbury as head coach, and then we also had a few different thoughts on Kliff, where Gary Ross says Kliff wasn't even given a real interview for OC. Jim Cook, our great sales guy at CHGO Sports, says Kliff might be a really, really good play caller in OC. Doesn't mean that he makes for a good head coach. They're not the exact same skills. And then somebody else said, brought in here that Kliff Kingsbury, was a failure as a head coach. MC Fact saying, Kingsbury as a head coach was a failure in college and the NFL. Just, somebody that for me, I just find interesting because when I try to combine the reporting of insiders that I trust, where they want to hire somebody that has experience as a head coach. They also want a head coach that is paired with Caleb Williams and has an offensive mind. I just think that list is much smaller than one or the other. And so I just, I think he's one of those people that fits that category, and who else does. Doesn't mean that's exactly which way they're going to go. It's just trying to parse through the reporting versus what the Bears need, what Caleb Williams needs. It's a lot to try to figure out and parse through. And that is why you got to try to, hit the books, hit the Hogey Bible up on allchgo.com/diehard, and he'll help you find your way to it. And then I'll just do my speculation game. So yeah,
I love one of the comments in there that Caleb's growing up in a completely broken home. Someone just put that in the comments there. And it does feel a little bit like, as we're judging and we're looking at all these different candidates, we're definitely protective parents right now, which is a good sign, where I do think that there is quiet and sometimes, for me, outward enthusiasm about Caleb Williams moving forward. So I do think that's a positive for sure. And we all just want to get it right, and whoever this guy is, we want it to be the guy. And we're so sick of being in this same cycle over and over again. So, I appreciate where all our passion is, right? Because I think we all just want to find the right guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So it'll be interesting. I know that I've been seeing with Caleb Williams, if he averages 285 yards over the next 2 games, that he'll have the all-time passing yard record in Chicago Bears history. And yes, he's thrown a lot of passing attempts because they've been down in a lot of games. And, it hasn't been a pretty season, and you can put all the qualifiers you possibly can on it. But at the same time, I think it also lends some perspective on just how high his ceiling is and where we've never really been from a quarterback standpoint. So, I think the future is bright. And I think, obviously this head coaching decision is going to be a big one, and it's going to be exciting to see going forward. And then it'll be interesting to see if I can just relax this offseason and not just completely go full meatball before next season starts. Full State Farm says Ben Johnson is not coming to the Bears if Poles is the GM on a 1-year contract. He will want to bring in Ray Agnew. And so that makes a lot of sense. And I don't disagree with that, but I also would add that if, there is a scenario where if Ben Johnson theoretically were to get along with Ryan Poles in the interview process, that then Ryan Poles, much to the chagrin of many Bears fans, would get a contract extension to pair himself up with the head coach and the quarterback, and then they're all tied together. And then some people would say, why in the world would the Bears ever do that? Well, history would suggest that they would be very capable of doing something like that, because they did it with Ryan Pace and when Matt Nagy was brought in here. So
yeah, and quick scenario too, as well, as what if Ben Johnson sits down with Ryan Poles, and not only they get together and they get along well on a man-to-man level. What if Ben Johnson says, I really want to have my fingerprints on this next draft, and this is exactly what I'm looking for and what I want, and Ryan Poles is willing to work with him hand in hand, and Ben Johnson now gets that version of control that we've heard kind of whispers about what he's looking for if he wanted to land the head coaching job. And what if Ryan Poles is in alignment with that, and Ben Johnson can go out and find the center of his choosing, and says, look, I don't think Braxton Jones is the future at left tackle. And Ryan Poles says, well, I'm willing to work with you to find the solution to that. And Ben Johnson gets a say in it. We don't know that. Again, I'm speculating, but that is another scenario where Ryan Poles could, in theory, work well with Ben Johnson and keep his job.
100%. Now let's get into the topic of the day. It's a serious one. We're going to end on a serious note here tonight. And that is, of course, for you, Joey, what constitutes as a Christmas movie? Because I take this topic very seriously.
Right.
And we've had a lot of movie discussions here on this program already. You revealed that Indiana Jones Temple of Doom is your favorite of the Indiana Jones, and that's absolutely ridiculously stupid. And so now I worry about what your Christmas movie takes are. So I'm kind of delving into the great unknown here. I'm taking a shot at you trying to win back my trust in your movie taste. And so I'm interested to hear what you think constitutes as a Christmas movie.
Is this the so this is the Christmas Bible is what we're doing here.
And we all do one of those important factors. Obviously it always starts with the foundational, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? But then there's so many others that try to reach that qualification. So let's just start off right off the top. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
So for me, 1010%, it is for the following reasons. One, when I want to sit down and watch a Christmas movie, there's a couple of prerequisites that you have to absolutely check the box of. One, soundtrack. Are you playing Christmas type songs? For Die Hard, the Christmas soundtrack is completely off the chain and amazing. The second one is you want to have a bit of what you're looking at visually. Is there snow involved? So Die Hard 2, 1000% a Christmas movie. Is there Christmas decorations? Are there things around it? Is there dialogue centered around Christmas is at stake possibly? Or, oh no, we're going to have a bad Christmas. Or, oh, we could have just gone to California, had a few lambs, blah, 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 on and on. So Die Hard for me, it is a Christmas movie. It's not on the top of my list. Another one that I have a contention with, I sent you in a text on this one. I think Batman Returns is 10,000% a Christmas movie. There is a huge Christmas tree where that poor woman gets shoved into, where everyone turns on Batman, and he therefore not only has to save Christmas, but save Gotham in itself. And then the end, Alfred goes, "Merry Christmas, sir." And he goes, "Yes, Happy New Year, goodwill toward men and women." So, I mean, you know, that's what a Christmas movie is to me. It doesn't have to have Christmas in the title, or it doesn't have to involve an elf or Santa Claus. I just want the vibe. I want the feeling. Granted, I can watch Die Hard any day of the week, any month of the year, but that's my checklist. Are you saying Die Hard is not a Christmas movie?
I am 100% saying that we are on the same page. We are step for step in this. Die Hard, Christmas movie, Batman Returns, maybe my favorite Christmas movie of all time.
Boom, we're back on the same page.
Right. Like, I'm saying over Home Alone. I'm saying over all of them. Even the real, what you would consider Christmas movies, I'm putting Batman Returns over them, because this time of year, I'll pop in Batman Returns to get nostalgic on the movies.
You love expensive baubles, or how does Christopher Walken say it?
Exactly. Gremlins, Christmas movie, of course. Yes. I loved somebody in the chat saying, "Is Prometheus, Ravi, is Prometheus a Christmas movie?" Because he's right. I think that at one point in the movie, there's like a Christmas tree that they're decorating. You forget that through all the terror that's happening throughout that movie, but he's right. Prometheus is a Christmas movie. Iron Man 3, even though the movie sucked, is a Christmas movie. It's
Lethal Weapon in this list. Yeah, she's maxing out on heroin and she's jumping off a building, but guess what they're playing? They're playing Christmas music, man. Christmas is at stake in Lethal Weapon.
Right. I saw some people saying, Bad Santa. Gary's asking, about 8 Crazy Nights. Of course, that's a great Christmas movie. That's an easy 100%. One, right? There's a lot of different ones in here that I think are up for consideration. But I did want to quiz you on an interesting Christmas movie that is probably my most obscure Christmas movie out there. And this one is a tough one. So I'm going to quiz you on it. And I hope you're ready for it. And if you are, I'm going to give you some different.
If this is Krampus, I'm going to be so excited.
Not Krampus, but I'm going to start naming you the cast.
Yeah.
Great movie that once starred the likes of Will Smith, Jack Black, Gene Hackman, John Voight,
Enemy of the State,
Seth Green.
Yeah, Enemy of the State. 100%. It's a Christmas movie.
Yep, you got it.
It came out like in November or December. I saw that in the theaters, dude.
Kennedy is in that movie.
Dude, the best dudes in the van. Killer dudes in the van.
We are talking about a star-studded cast here, people. Star-studded. And Enemy of the State. You nailed it. I think we have finally found our commonplace here.
What's your top 5? Do you got a top 5 Christmas movies? Are you able to do it? Batman Returns is number 1. We can reverse engineer this. You said Home Alone's not even close. Is Home Alone in your top 5?
No, I guess the real question is Home Alone 2 better than Home Alone? I think a lot of people from Chicago get nostalgic for Chicago or for Home Alone 1 because it's, based, locally for us.
Lincoln Avenue, yeah.
But then Home Alone 2, man, you talk about a sequel living up to the hype, which is never easy, right? And they did had a similar recipe in it. I don't know. You might argue Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1. Where do you stand on that?
I mean, gosh, like, look, it's the sound of a tool shed falling down the stairs. Absolutely slays me, dude. So like the injuries, the injuries in Home Alone 2, I think are better than in Home Alone 1, in my opinion. I rip both of them. So when Christmas season comes around, there's some like must-haves that I have to do, right? I always do Batman Returns. I always do Elf. I always do both Home Alone movies. I actually contend that Beauty and the Beast is kind of a Christmas movie because there's tons of snow going on over the Christmas season. I kind of like to rip that one. I like Krampus a lot. I will say this. My favorite part of Home Alone 2 is that midway through the movie, Tim Curry comes in and absolutely steals the whole show. I mean, exactly. You're waiting for Marv and Harry. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Harry, Happy Hanukkah, Marv. Like that thing absolutely slays me. But Tim Curry might be like the decider. It's like Tim Curry versus the old man, right? Like, so I don't know, man. I think Home Alone 2, I always kind of liked it a little bit more. I wanted that walkie-talkie thing growing up. That's like right in my zone.
I had it. I had the walkie-talkie.
Yeah, both pizzas look amazing. I'm really into movie food. So the cheese pizza outside the limo is an absolute killer.
Yep.
Turtle doves.
Yep.
Falling in love with pigeons at a young age, not really knowing that, you probably shouldn't hang around a woman with a ton of pigeons. This is like a little PSA for the Christmas season I want to throw out there, but
she was a pretty nice lady. Jim Cook says it was called a talk boy, 100%.
Thank you. Thank you.
Two more people that were in Enemy of the State, Jason Lee, and then of course Anna Gunn is in. From Breaking Bad fame is in Enemy of the State. So,
it's kind of making me thinking that Will Smith never did like a true traditional Christmas movie, and now it kind of makes me sad. Like even at his apex, like
that's what throws people off when I start naming the cast. They think it's a comedy because there's just so many good comedians in it.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, seriously, it's absolutely, it's one of the best movies ever. And as somebody said earlier, ahead of its time. It really was. And I always
in the parlance of our 2024 times, it was ahead of our time. 100%,
yes,
dude.
Of course. And Jim Cook, our sales guy, who always, just when you think you love him, then he finds a way to piss you off. He's naming never seen Enemy of the State. Then he's saying he's never seen this. And never, like, I'm trying to find some of the other ones that this idiot was saying that he hasn't seen. I just can't take it with this guy sometimes. Never seen Die Hard.
It's called culture, man.
Like, seriously, at one point I think he says he never seen Batman Returns. Like, this is what I mean. I need you guys to understand, everyone that's watching the show right now. This is the shit I have to deal with this guy. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So,
never seen Batman Returns?
Never seen Die Hard. Like, what in the I know, Ravi. Honestly, it's unforgivable, really, is what it is. And it's just, this is why we got
a lot to work with over here.
I struggle to have patience with this man. But he is great with helping us organize the tailgates, and I want to make sure to remind everybody, hey, this Sunday, last one for the season. We've done one for every home game this year. Proud of that, because last year we cut short right at the end of November, but this year I pushed hard. Like every single home game going forward forever, we will be there for you at the corner of Wabash and Cermak. If you go to allchgo.com/events, you can sign up to come to our Die Hard last one. Get Miller Lite. You get Firewater Barbecue. You get all the good vibes. Hey, it was 10 degrees out on Sunday for Bears Lions, and we had a huge crowd. It was as normal a crowd as it always is there. And so that's a testament to, obviously, the Bears fans and their passion. But we appreciate all of you and your support to what we're trying to do here, and of course our program. So please come out for the last one. and we're going to spend extra time with you guys. And it's a unique one because it's a Thursday night game. So we're going to start at 3 p.m. as opposed to, our normal Sunday, noon kickoff games. So, I think most people, I think a good majority of people will have the day off the day after Christmas, potentially. My wife doesn't. She's a nurse, so not everybody, certainly. But if you have the opportunity to come by, please come by, say hi, and I'll give you a big old hug and throw you a beer. We'll have some fun.
Shout out to you too, Greg Braggs. This last one too as well. If you're thinking to yourself, oh man, it's going to be so cold. Well, first of all, the weather's looking really good, right?
Right.
And second of all, you imported some heaters. And you brought your own backyard, fire. So it's literally like hanging out with friends, like in the back. We're all just hanging around a fire, talking Bears. There's going to be drinks. There's going to be great barbecue there. So obviously dress accordingly for the weatherman. But we do what we can to make sure that you're comfortable and have a great time. It was nice and warm on Sunday, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah, sure.
So it worked out, dude.
My mom got me this fire pit. There's these sweet fire pits. And I had only used it once. And I was like, man, I should bring this. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get it back home, but I'll bring it. We'll fire it up. And it was great. It was. And it is supposed to be in the mid 40s, closer to 50 degrees on Thursday. Yep. And I think around 3 o'clock, it'll peak to its highest temp around then. So it's going to be pretty warm. So I don't know if it'll be necessary or not even for the heaters, but heck, we can fire up the fire pit just for good measure anyway. But regardless, we're going to be having a lot of fun. And finishing on the right note with our tailgates, even though the Bears are not finishing on the right note on their season. And Chubbs, in the Christmas spirit, finishing it off with a $2 super chat saying, if I see one more idiot say we should draft Travis Hunter. Merry Christmas to you, Chubbs. I haven't seen too many people say that, other than me trolling Corey Wooten just to piss him off. He knows I just completely neglected anything with the trenches with our top 2 picks last year. And look,
just say Kalijah Cansey and Corey will freak out.
And look where that got us. So I'm gonna leave it to Corey's expertise this year. I'll let him pick out some players from the trenches, and we'll get into all that. We've got plenty of time to go over some different free agency options and draft options, and we'll certainly have fun, finding our way through that after the Bears figure out who their head coach will be. So I think that wraps things up for tonight. Joey, as always, you are so greatly appreciated for hanging out and doing your thing. Matt Nagy with the final question from the chat asking, question for Joey, why are you so damn handsome? Please post a pic of your parents when you have time. So
with clothes on, right, Matt Nagy? Or
he didn't specify.
He's just trying to figure out the why is what he's trying to do with the dimples and the jawline.
Well said. Well, that wraps things up, Joey. I appreciate your time as always. And of course, I appreciate everyone here in the chat hanging out. Please hit that like button for us on your way out. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And of course, I just want to say one more thing to everyone. Enjoy your holidays over the next 2 days. Enjoy your time with your family and everything else. I had said on Twitter the other night, obviously it's been a rough, last 7 days here at CHGO, but a few days ago I was talking with my mom, and I think we spent 3 hours on the phone till about 2:33 in the morning. And I was giving her some crap at the end of it was a really good life conversation and something I really needed to kind of have things get put into perspective, and somebody like her that's been through a lot of different things in her life. And at the end of it, I was joking with her and I was like, Mom, I'm just so busy nowadays. You really don't get this time with me. So you should cherish this for everything that it is. She's like, oh, I was, Greg. And, then I realized very quickly how, she's 74 years old now, and she's, she'll probably go to 120 the way she moves. But it made me appreciate, those kind of moments you don't get, as you get older. You don't get too many more times. How many more times do you get to talk to your mom for 3 hours and really have a heart to heart when life is moving so fast? And so, I think it's just about, my message is just about cherish the ones around you and cherish the time you have, and understand tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. And, I've had 39 years of 39 Christmases, and I will be lucky if I have 39 more Christmases with my family. So, certainly hope it's a few more than that, but at the same time, it's just about perspective and appreciating the time you have and not taking it for granted. So everyone, enjoy your Christmas and your holiday with your family. And I love all of you. And, I'll do my best to stay off social media the next 2 days, which I'm sure won't happen, but I might. So, all right. Take care, everyone. Merry Christmas. Love you, Joey. Love you, everybody else. We'll see you on Thursday. This is, I believe, the last show on CHGO Sports until we come back on Thursday. We're on holiday tomorrow and on Christmas. So make sure you tune in for our pregame show on Thursday, starting at 6:00 probably. And we'll have a post-game show immediately following the Bears Seahawks game. So been a tough year. We'll get through it. Maybe even find our way to a guy like Ben Johnson. But other than that, you know what? One thing that I want to tell everyone, as I always do when I finish these shows, is keep your head up and always, always bear down. And Merry Christmas.
We all silly like the mayor.